mentioned the other week, just last week even, that I had read the supplemental to Inglorious Rex. So probably not
Yeah.
reading it in the proper order. Blood,
Yeah, I
Sweat, and
remember that.
Tears, Volume 1. I have it next to me. But I also have the regular volume, the main event. If my camera would like to focus, it would be
Almost.
wonderful
We can see the
because
fun colors, though.
my, yeah,
Oh, oh.
just put it close enough to my face. That'll be in focus.
Yeah, that's
So
actually pretty good.
yeah. So I got a signature on it. That's fun. Always fun to have the signature. I won't show too much in it, but it's this is so very different art than the previous book that I was talked about last week, but
Mhm.
also very good, also very detailed. You can tell it's more of that sort of like you said, superhero book sort of look. Um,
Yeah. It's got the
mhm.
classic, like, color pop for sure,
Yep.
like 80s
Mhm.
color pop.
Yep. So this is an interesting. So the premise is basically, I mentioned it before, I think, where it's about big fighting monsters, but you have pilots of it. So it reminds me of like a mech anime or
Mm,
something. Whether it
yeah.
be a Gundam, those are the types of things that I was always into. A Gundam or more recent stuff like Darling in the Franxx or something like that.
Yeah, I remember
Piloted
saying this sounded like,
machines.
Pacific Rim, except
Yep.
you like you
Hmm.
said you pilot monsters instead of robots, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
And so you
okay.
find out in this that the monsters are, let's see, I don't want to spoil anything. The monsters are made, and they're made
Mm,
for the fighters, and
mhm,
it's the story of a guy named Alex, and he has this brother that was like the best Rex fighter in the world or whatever. And so he has like big shoes to fill. It's kind of been in his shadow or whatever. He's struck by tragedy, and yeah, we have to see how he's gonna come out of this. And he's got a girlfriend that they're gonna have some interesting conflict between the two of them.
mhm,
She's a really cool
okay.
character. Um, she's called Anatomic, and it's like her fighter name or whatever. And it's a really good book. I struggle. So it's the thing I found in comics now. It's a different world. Like with where I am now in manga and with independent comics, when I grew
Mhm,
up, the whole idea was go to the store or whatever, you get your subscription, you show up with a comic book shop every week, and you get your monthly issue of something.
mhm,
Well, knowing more about stuff, people can't generally keep up with this pace and keep quality where it should be. And so books get spread out further. And so what we're finding now is like this, I don't know how long for sure this took to write, but it was
mhm.
a year or more, for this or whatever. So it's going to be a year or more for the next volume, barring
Sure.
any delays or whatever. And I'm finding this in all kinds of things. Like for a while, I was like, well, maybe that's unrealistic that you should be getting stuff more frequent. But when you look at the level of art in this,
Mhm.
then you're like, well, yeah, but that takes a lot of time. And then the color on
Right,
top of it and stuff. That's not
right.
so a person's got to decide what they're into. And I see that like Webtoons, like we're reading Webtoons and stuff. And I like the art of that, but it's much more simplified. So you can get a weekly hit of that and keep
Mhm,
the story progressing. And that's
mhm,
fun. But you can also go the other route and you get a more sizable book like this, but then you're going to expect to wait. And so my point of why I'm rambling with this is that it's um it's difficult for the pacing of a book to be to explain enough, to have enough happen, and then leave you wanting more but being satisfied. Like that's a
mhm,
really challenging thing to balance, I think. And I
mhm.
can't imagine doing that where you're going to sit down and you're going to put kind of a year to 2 years of your life into making a book, and then know that your audience is going to read that in 15 to 30 minutes. Hopefully they read it a couple times or whatever, and then they don't get another one for another year to 2 years.
Mhm.
That's a lot to ask, so you got to choose your art. So my point with this is the criticism I have of this book is that I feel like I wanted more setup time and more seeing the struggle of the characters, like the minutia of
Mm.
someone training. I wanted to like have a little more going on, a little more drama with that because this book
Mhm.
flies. So that's great. Like a lot happens, there's no boring moments or whatever. It's also not like ham-fisted exposition, which comic books
Mhm.
are really great at doing. Comic books and
Mhm.
anime, like, I'll tell you A, B, and C in a really ineloquent way. This doesn't do
Right.
that. So that stuff is all really good. But when you want, and it's like, I'm not going to get the next book now for another year. A lot did happen in this, but I felt like I sped through it. If that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like I sped through all that stuff. Like I want more
Mm.
time with the fights. Manga's really good with that. Like, that they release like a volume or chapter or
Mm.
whatever, not volume, a chapter in like Shonen Jump every week or whatever, and it's very short. It might just be panels of some fighting or whatever. So but then you keep getting your little hit.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's a bigger conversation. Oh, anyways, Inglorious Rex, it was really good. I just wanted to slow down, but then my complaint would probably be, well, not enough happened in this book. So it's a catch 22, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, but it's a valid thing. I mean, if you are, like you said, going to expect people to wait for that long, you don't want them to feel that it was over too quickly and that there's, not enough to go back to and maybe pour over and ruminate and sit with. I mean, which is what some of the slower moments allow you to do. Like you don't usually go back and like I mean, you can look at a fight again and think about it, but also like the minutia like you were talking about the struggle, like the detail of how do we deal with a situation. That's sometimes like the richest source material for going back, pausing, thinking like, what is this situation like really? Like, what is the tension here? Like, what are these characters feeling? That's
Yep.
fertile soil for spending more time in that world. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, I mean, on the one hand, sure, like, it can feel nitpicky. On the other, like, potentially valid criticism. Obviously, I haven't read it, so I can't speak to, what I think the balance might be, but yeah.
Yep.
I think it's
Yeah.
a valid critique if that's how you felt at the end of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I only have one other criticism, and I can't really bring it up because it's spoiler. Um,
Sure.
but I have the next volume on pre-order basically. So whenever it comes
Does it
out,
have a date
I'll get it.
attached or okay. So clearly it doesn't.
There's a like a I think there's a month. I don't remember what it is. I didn't even consider what it was. So
Okay.
I could look at it, but I think the idea is if you're gonna consume this sort of format of media, you need to like get like you're expecting you're gonna get multiple of them. You know,
Mhm.
you're gonna have different series. So I'm gonna read this. Just read Kozor the other week. Read all this different stuff that keeps the content coming. But they're
Right.
different worlds and different stories and whatever. So if you're, if you're really into this, like this author does a book called Starlight Cats for kids more. And it's I
Sounds
thought about getting it,
awesome.
but
I love that
yeah,
name.
yeah, people really like it. And some, little kids or whatever, they just get really they get to be big fans of it. But definitely as a
Sure.
little kid, like it's different for them because I remember as a kid, I had one issue of an X-Men comic and I read that over and over and over till it was
Mm.
shreds.
Mhm.
And like
Mhm.
that worked. It was fine. So that makes more sense for them. But almost some of the things I guess you could just wait. It's kind of like a TV show. Maybe you want to just wait for a few seasons to be out so you can really go through it and get into it,
Sure.
you know? But
Yeah, I mean, it's the eternal, like, binge or, like, do you wait? Like,
yep.
what do you like? Do you like the opportunity for the whole season or seasons to drop so you can just, like, fly? Or do you like waiting the set amount of
Mhm.
time and just knowing, like, you're forced to wait?
Yep.
I, for different things, like different like, both modes. So it's
Right.
hard to say, like, definitively, but, for something like Webtoons, I am one of the people who doesn't generally tend to spend my coins on, like, buying new episodes because I like that, like, week or couple days that I have to wait.
Sure.
I mean,
Okay.
sometimes I can't help it. Sometimes the story is just too good or, like, the
Mhm.
the whole overarching, tune itself, I just love and I have to keep going. But for the most part, like, on a lot of them, like, I can wait. I get that itch,
Right.
like, right at the end to just, like, keep going, and then I'm like, "No, it's
Mhm.
okay. Like, I've made it this far. I can do it."
And you can keep yourself entertained with other series, right? So then
Yeah,
you're yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean I don't love those series too, or at some point, like, wouldn't grab an episode here or there, but for the most part, it is kind of fun to, like, think about the next week and what could be happening.
I get in the thing where though I'm reading and then I see it, oh, next one available for free in 30 days.
Mm,
It's like extra long
yeah,
because if you go ahead a little bit. Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
that does get
So
tricky, yeah. But then, like, you can find yourself, you're like, "Okay, well, I've read this many and, like, next one's free in, like, 30 days," and then you forget. And suddenly you have, like, 3 or 4, and it's like a little mini, like, binge surprise. You're like, "Oh my god, I have, like, a couple
yeah.
now. I totally forgot." So,
Yep. Yep. Well, anyways, Inglorious Rex is available now. You can go ahead and pick
okay.
that up via the campaign for the second one. So